Nothing fancy, nothing fake, nothing wasted and no deal to make. What you need is what you want to take, and what you take, you use. I'm just looking for that sweet spot where I can live the way that I want. I'll be waiting for you out front if you want me to. Are you coming to? The fire is steady and the beat is strong. The give is good and wide and long. You don't even have to hold on, 'cause it's got a hold of you. I'm just looking for that sweet spot where I can love the way that I want. I'll be waiting for you out front if you want me to. Are you coming to? And when I find that sweet spot, gonna give it everything I got. Turn up the radio a whole lot for the afternoon. Soft as a woman, strong as a man, throws your head back in a full-mouth laugh. It's like knowing you can sleep at night, but you don't want to. I'm just looking for that sweet spot where I can live the way that I want. I'll be waiting for you out front if you want me to. Are you coming to? This morning, if it always goes, funny thing wouldn't faze me none. Might feel like I just got home. You know I always had a taste for traveling alone. Only get this one time around. Better speak up straight, better speak up proud. Good Lord, if he's not at home, well, I always had a taste for traveling alone. Oh, if I had a son, I would make him laugh, I would teach him something. Son, you gotta hold your own, and it's good to have a taste for traveling alone. Oh, if I had any love, I would say, man, got to keep, got to lay down, baby, feed my soul. I got a taste for traveling alone. Oh, if I had a song, I would sing it now. Wouldn't take too long. I'd sing goodness is a real backbone, and it's what you do when you're traveling alone. Down south, baby, in the heat, I was raised up right, I was raised so sweet. Sweetness ain't gonna get you home. No, you're bound to get a taste of traveling alone. I know that the world is mean. I know it don't care. Been around, I've seen it. It's like a pretty girl, don't even know. I guess everybody here is traveling alone. Cigarettes and a pickup truck. Gonna leave this town now. Got to press my luck. Ocean gonna break so slow. You know I always had a taste for traveling alone. Thank you. This is a guitar I stole from my father, and it's been on tour for about 3 months now, and he is going to kill me. In time. It's retiring at Christmas. Well, thank you for having me and for being so well-behaved and for having a kitchen that I could raid. I've been on tour for about 3 months straight, and I was really glad that your cupboard was a little more stocked than mine. This next song is a song that I wrote called Spring. And it's about, I don't know, good songs are about more than one thing, but you sort of fly a flag and say that it's about one thing. And it's about the life cycle of a flower. Oh, it is a mystery like a lover's touch, brings a blossom from a winter's bud. Oh, it is a mystery like my lover's touch, brings a blossom from a winter's bud. I'm gonna lose what I came here for. I'm gonna lose everything I love. Only for a minute, just to be alive before I hit the ground right below this vine, and it's worth it. It's worth it. Baby, baby, time goes slow. I feel like honey built on hold, tangled in the branches, laced beneath the green. God, you never seen skin so clean, and it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. So it is a mystery like a lover's touch, brings a blossom from a window. blossom from a winter's bud. Stamen and a pistol, hips and joints, all the petals gather, come to a point, blooming in the branches with all of my might. Everybody knows what comes after ripe. Hyacinth and cherry, daffodil, rolling all together out in the field, and it's worth it. It's worth it. Oh, it's worth it. It's worth it. So it is a mystery like a lover's touch, brings a blossom from a winter's bud. Oh, it is a mystery like my lover's touch, brings a blossom from a winter's bud. Wilt and wither with all you've left. Beauty is defiance in the face of death. Hard ice on the winter, ashes in the fall. Wonder if there ever was a flower here at all. Hard ice on the winter, ashes in the fall. I wonder if there ever was a flower here at all. But it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. Oh, it's worth it. Oh, it's worth it. So it is a mystery like a lover's touch, brings a blossom from a winter's bud. Oh, it is a mystery like my lover's touch, brings a blossom from a winter's bud. I feel like I should tell you funny stories about things I've Googled in my life. But maybe we should get to know each other a little better first. Hello, the good morning. Are you all looking well? Come here and hold me slowly. I want you to myself. Don't let the world distract you. Don't call for no one else. Just let the feeling have you. I want you to myself. 'Cause oh, there's so much to go around. There's so much to go around. You know I want you to stay. So much to go around. When you try to pin it down, oh, that moment slips away. And when you are far from me and going someplace else, I'll think of next time, baby, I'll have you to myself. Unfolding me like branches, give me that tender spell. Dance a while in my kitchen, I want you to myself. 'Cause oh, there's so much to go around. You know I'm really happy now, and I want you to stay. Oh, there's so much to go around. When you try to pin it down, Lord, that moment slips away. Each moment is a secret, how much it has to tell, but it will never speak it if you keep it to yourself. 'Cause oh, there's There's so much to go around. You know I'm really happy now, and I want you to stay. Oh, there's so much to go around. When you try to pin it down, Lord, that moment slips away. Skipped a stone and watched it go, the arc and then the undertow, thinking a day is something like a prayer. So much to ask, you started soft, then the weighted locks come off. In the end, you just hope someone's there, 'cause all these small talk relations, oh, they ain't nothing for real. Don't nobody here, and oh no, the way that I feel. But there's no one to answer to, just the dark and me and you. All the angels standing round just wishing for a drag there of your smoke, a taste of skin, a sip of hope, to raise their skirts up when no words are rising. 'Cause all these small talk relations, Lord, give me something for real. Don't nobody here, and oh no, the way that I feel. Workman in the street below, softly play a radio. I'm static through the traffic. The crowd just turns to leave. The secret current underneath cannot be heard above the racket. Oh, small talk relations. I can't hear one thing for real. Don't nobody here, and oh no, the way that I feel. Oh, 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 oh. This next song, I guess on this whole record, I was thinking about how much noise there is, and what if it is actually important, and what if it is actually just noise. And somehow I got to thinking about how Jesus and Robert Johnson probably were in the exact same position when they were about to, make these big decisions in their life, like I need to get born or I need to sell my soul to the devil so I can play guitar. They probably felt very similarly crazy and very similarly hopeful that they were making the right decision. So. Jesus at the table in the early morning, Dad, I've been thinking I gotta get born. Gotta mean something heavy to somebody somewhere. I don't know who I am, but I can't stay here. I didn't mean to stand up, I didn't mean to daydream. I didn't want to hear it calling my name. Regular life don't suit me at all. Hey, I gotta get going, I'm still not home. Yeah, I best be going, I'm still not home. Robert Johnson was trembling, calling for help at the edge of the field, talking to himself. Not a woman, not a dollar, not even his soul is as good in his hands as that old guitar. He say, nobody see how desperate I'm torn. I feel like I'm crazy the way that I'm going. Don't know if it's from up high or way down low. Hey, I gotta get going, I'm still not home. Yeah, I best be going, I'm still not home. You know that ache, it's grown familiar. How many times got to shoo it from my door, putting the shine on the far side of the river. Hey, come round to bruise me up a little bit more. Yeah, come round to bruise me up just a little bit more. One day I'm gonna lie like a season of green, and my heart's gonna run like a flying machine. Lipstick and a nickel in the pocket of my coat, and I won't even care if I never come back. Yeah, all the windows open and the wind like wheels. Ain't nobody can tell you the way that that feels. Up a thought if you could see the way I'm gonna soar. Hey, I gotta get going, I'm still not home. Yeah, I best be going, I'm still not home. Oh, I try so hard, I'm still not home. Yeah, I gotta get going, I'm still not home. Let's see, when people are so quiet, I'm so compelled to tell you things. And it's, I guess I should tell you that I actually, when I was writing this record, I live fairly close to here. I'm originally from North Carolina. And I moved to the city a number of years ago, not so long ago, but I live very close to the city winery. And I love this story. I think it's such a New York story. One night I was there to see some friends play, or I don't know, I was there doing something. And I told them that they had this beautiful grand piano that there's very little in the world I love as much as having an instrument in my hands, especially playing a beautiful piano. And they said, well, if you love playing our piano so much, you can come down and play it anytime you like. And I said, you ought to be really careful saying that to me. And they said, no, really, we mean it. And I said, no, really, I mean it. And so being a writer, being a musician, I think that you spend so much of your time in the landscape inside, traveling alone. And I was able, going to the city winery every morning when I woke up to get my cup of coffee, I would go, and I was really a part of their staff. They would be,
getting the coffee cups and the table settings ready, and the wine was being made, and things were getting chopped in the kitchen, and I got to know everybody, and I never felt so open. I think writing is it's the most personal thing I can do, really. And they made me feel so comfortable. I just was in the corner, like with my hair in a big mess and practically in my pajamas. And I would play this piano and get lost, but I would have this beautiful quotidian life with everyone there. Hey, how are you? How are you doing this morning? Are you well? And I would play for about an hour and a half, and then when they opened the doors for lunch, I would kind of walk home with whatever I had been drifting on at that piano in my head, and then I would write. And this in particular was a song that was born on that piano right here in this neighborhood, so I thought I would play it for you. Thank you for having me.
Driving without destination, leaving our clothes there on the bank and swimming in a river with no name. The crazy way the motor jangles, talking to somebody ain't got no angles. Somebody meeting somebody halfway. Every once in a while, the feeling of beauty catches my breath, runs right through me. If you don't mind, I'll stay on another couple of days. Finding out just what you're made of, a stretch of green grass made to make love, racing stripes and hurricanes. The few things really worth knowing, like where you think that red bird's going, no illusions, all a clear day. Every once in a while, the feeling of beauty catches my throat, runs right through me. If you don't mind, I'll stay on another couple of days. Doing right when it's not easy, calling out without thinking, something sweet you just wanted to say. I'm alright, thanks for asking. Still got a few holes in my basket and light in the kitchen. Still all real late. I love the way that screen door catches a stranger with a pack of matches and starting out when I don't know the way. And every once in a while, the feeling of beauty catches my heart, runs right through me. If you don't mind, I'll stay on another couple of days. It's alright with you, I'll stay on another couple of days. I'll stay on another couple of days.
Thank you very much for having me.
Welcome home, because
Thank
you've been
you.
traveling. Tell us about some of your travels, because you've been out for a few months with the band
I've
and
been
running
out
around.
I've been out for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at the point where I'm really lonely if I'm not in a dressing room, and clean clothes are a totally foreign idea. I've been on the road since about the beginning of September, and I was out. I've been out with my band, and we were all around the U.S. and then we went. And we were in the UK, and then we went to Europe, and I just got home on Friday night. So I don't know what month it is, and I haven't cooked in 3 months.
Yeah, that's a weird part. So you just got home, and then last night and tonight, we're catching you right in the middle of making 2 appearances alongside your friend Andrew Bird
Yes.
at Riverside Church. How was that?
It's so beautiful there, and he is such an incredible musician. I don't know if you're familiar with him, and he's an incredible player, but he's also such an incredible singer. He's really one of my favorite people, and I don't say that lightly. You sing with people, you sing with a lot of different people, and when something really rings, you go, oh, oof, wow. So
Did you
he's
guys
really
know-
one of my favorite people to
Did you guys know each other back in North Carolina? Like, were there any connections back then? Or
Not really. I mean, I think we crossed paths, and I knew he was with the Scroll Nut Zippers, and I think I was probably shy. And so we met maybe 2 years ago when we did the Cabinet of Wonders together, and we sang together, and I think we both went, oh. And then he was kind enough to sing on this record, too. I wrestled him into coming and doing a duet with me on this record.
which is beautiful, the song Drifting Apart.
Thank you.
Which is really nice. Tift, so this new album is called Traveling Alone.
Mm-hmm.
And as the title suggests, and as many of the songs that we heard, there is a spirit, I think, for a lot of writers of traveling and gaining perspective when you leave where you're from and then you can look back. As a writer, is that a big part for you of where perspective and inspiration comes from? Because you almost have to leave your world to be more of an observer of it and write about it.
I think that's true. And in fact, as my nose is itching, so that means that my mother can hear whatever I say about this. But I think that works on 2 levels. I'm from North Carolina, and North Carolina was a very, very particular place in time when I was growing up. I mean, it was very different from any other place in the world. It was sort of before everyone had a cell phone, and there weren't any chain stores, and you knew everyone, and everyone knew your parents, and if everyone knew everything wrong that you ever did. And I like that kind of closeness. But I also was always encouraged to leave. I wasn't chained to a tree in this small town, and I think that's why I can feel so fondly about it, where you are encouraged to leave your home to find your home. But on another level, I think that traveling alone really is a way to talk about the landscape inside, to talk about interior life and a home inside. And I'm a performer and a loudmouth, and I'm not an introvert, but I spend a huge amount of my life in this landscape on the inside, and I think that's, you can kind of sound like a jerk unless you give it a sort of rough-hewn way, find a way to talk about it that is real world, and that's what I wanted to do on this record.
Do you hear things from fans that are meaningful to you? Because when you write songs of such personal nature, I think people have a way of internalizing them and putting their own stuff. You must hear all kinds of things from fans who relate to your music. Anything you could share?
I'm trying to think. I think the nicest thing is when people come and tell you that that your music has meant something to them, and most oftentimes they'll say, well, it helped me through a hard time. And, you know, I don't know, I'm just grateful for that. You know, I think that making work and being a musician should really be the reward in and of itself. I mean, you know, you can't, it's not about being a celebrity, it's not about numbers, it's not about making a lot of money, it's about making something of meaning and beauty. And when that resonates with someone else, you're just grateful that your work actually means something to someone beyond yourself.
But you're really speaking like a writer now. I mean, that's really...
Well, I think that I am a writer first. I was a really crappy musician for a long time. And now I've just been at it long enough that I know how to listen.
If you guys want to start to queue up with some of your own questions, we'll definitely take some. Don't be shy. There are 2 mics, so do that. Here's a question for you. Do you have to be a great writer to be a great songwriter? Or the reverse, you know, do great songwriters always make for great writers? Because you studied creative writing and stuff, so you have both of those things. Do you have to be a great writer to be a great songwriter?
No, I think you have to be honest, and I think you have to get lucky. And I think that those are the 2 things that I count on myself. But I think that, right, you know, I also think that, I think that creativity is one of those things where when you start, and before your work is invented, when you're trying to invent this thing that isn't invented, you can go so many different mediums. And so when I was starting, I really wanted to be a writer. I wanted to write books. I wanted to say heavy, serious things about life. And I could have gone in that direction, but I would have needed to commit to that medium. And instead, I committed to this shorter form, which is, you know, a good song is about 3 sentences, 4 if you have a bridge. And now I've spent, you know, the past 15 years of my life trying to say something in 4 sentences. And when I go back and I try to write prose, I feel very watered down. I go, this is moving way too slow. Let's get to the point. And so I think I think the deeper you can commit to your medium, the better.
And for you, it's about paring it down.
I like the intensity I like the 1-2 punch. And I don't think there's any going back. You get used to that.
It's like cooking, you know? You reduce the sauce.
That's right. Cook down those bones.
Exactly. Tift, I read when I Googled you last night, I read that your dad's record collection was a big inspiration to you. And I'd love to hear some stuff about that, because in the performance today, there was one song that just felt like a straight up kind of country tune. And I know your records, so I know a lot of the songs are fleshed out with pedal steel and stuff. But then when you played the tune at the piano, that was a straight up like soul R&B kind of number. You'd almost hear the horns and the minor chord. Like, so I imagine, I don't know your dad, I don't know his record collection, but I imagine like this visual of like this sort of country, you know, like country albums right alongside like Otis Redding and, you know, like, so tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, the first thing is that my dad really wanted to be a musician. And somehow I talk about him enough that he thinks he's super famous. And so, you know, I call him and I go, hey, Dad, yeah, in Sweden today, like somebody yelled out that they know that you like to go fishing. And he's like, oh, that's great.
What fishing?
Oh, he just like, fishing, he likes to fish. Anyway, my dad, so now I'm going to have to call him and be like, how's it Google today? And I talked about you, Dad. Oh, he's going to be so glad. So anyway, my dad taught me how to play music. And my dad is really why I consider myself a folk musician, because he played everything by ear. He played guitar by ear. He played piano by ear in this very simple way. And he definitely thought he was a genius at it. And it turns out he kind of was. And I can remember being a child and sitting with him on a Saturday, and he would play Bob Dylan songs and play his harmonica and fingerpick. And then he'd play Percy Sledge songs on the piano, and then we'd drive around in the car and sing Dolly Parton songs. And in a lot of ways, I think part of why I play music is because I felt so close to my father in those times. You know, playing music with someone is such an expression of the best of life. So my father really gravitated towards a good song, and he didn't really think about it beyond that at all. And I have to say that it's really hard for me to think about that at all beyond that too.
So who are some of the greats that you hold high in the music world? And then we'll ask you the same for writers and stuff.
Okay.
Who are who are the guys who wrote the blueprints for you?
Well, Dylan, I mean, what an innovator. And I think Dylan and I think Neil Young. You know, Dylan for his just writing intelligence and the power, and Joni Mitchell for her how expressive she is and how personal she is, and what a unique musical voice she has. You know, I think Carole King as a writer and someone who's earthy and unselfish and generous, I think she's a real role model. Neil Young, I think, for just the kind of not intellectual side of it. Not that he's not intellectual, but it's all heart. Right. You know, I think that you kind of, if you're a songwriter, it's really hard not to go worship at those places. And, you know, there's a lot of the country. I mean, people say, "Oh, you're a country singer," and I go, "I don't know, I'm not mainstream country." But I will say that a lot of those leading ladies like Kitty Wells and Emmylou Harris and Bobby Gentry and Tammy Wynette, Loretta Lynn, you know, I think they held themselves with a great deal of dignity. And you know, there was a sense of abandon and a sense of music and a sense of show, but there was also a sense of meaning. And when I looked at the music industry and tried to see myself, and you know, and there's like Madonna and Bob Dylan, if that were the spectrum, where would I fit? And I thought these women held themselves in a way that with a sincerity and a dignity that I could relate to. So
that's interesting. We have a question. Go ahead, good Mike.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, I have two questions, if that's okay.
Of course.
Great performance.
Thank
Loved
you.
watching you.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask the questions, and then you can answer
Okay.
them both. Are you a keyboard player that learned to play the guitar, or vice versa? That's the first question. And the second question is, how strong is your emotional attachment to that guitar with the two holes at the bottom of the bridge?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, the first thing is that I'm probably a piano player first. I took some lessons when I was really little, but then my dad showed me, and it got to the point where you had to write down how long you practiced every day. And I had the moral conundrum of lying or admitting that I was not practicing. And so I stopped taking piano lessons. So I'm not trained like that, but I find that I play the piano like a melody instrument. It's much, I can find melody. I can get lost at a piano for hours and hours and hours. I started playing guitar when I was a teenager, and so it wasn't like one really led the way, but I'm probably more at home at the piano. Although I have really come to pride myself on being a good rhythm guitar player. I consider myself part of the rhythm section. And I am endlessly fascinated with how locked I can get with the groove and how deep I can get that pocket to go. And at first I was really ashamed that I couldn't solo, and now I think that it's pretty important to be a good rhythm player. This is my guitar, Little Red, and I'm really attached to it. Somebody gave it to me or sold it to me when I first started putting out records, because they told me that I had this big oversized guitar from the 70s, and they said it made me look really short. So I really was upset about this guitar because it was a short joke to begin with. But this guitar has been on the road with me for 10 years, and it's kind of a workhorse. And I play 60s Gibsons because they have this great warm sound that's great for strumming, but they also have really small headstocks so that my hands are really small. This other guitar is actually my father's guitar that I stole from him for this tour. and he's going to kill me because I've marked it up. But he says that he wanted in a pool game. I don't believe him. So that one is actually, I'm even more attached to that because he will kill me if anything happens to it. So, yeah. Is that good? Yeah. Okay. Hi.
Actually, I wanted to jump on what you said about being a rhythm player. I'm actually a singer-songwriter myself, and I've been having some trouble with rhythm, and I was just wondering how you got to be so good at it.
Well, first of all, it took a lot of years, and I'm married to a drummer. And, you know, I think that things like playing to records that you love, like Carter Family records, where the rhythm playing is really, really, really important. Playing to the old country records, where the rhythm playing is really a part of the band. And also, you know, practicing with a metronome. You know, I mean, it's really, I have to say that practicing is so much a part. People think that rock and roll is just, there are no rules, and you know, you drink some whiskey and it comes out of you. But being a good musician is, like, there's a lifetime of study there. And I think that practice and listening, learning how to listen, I feel like I just, every day I get up and go, God, I didn't even know I could listen that hard. And I think listening and just, you know, it's just kind of a Zen thing. You just have to practice and listen and know that it adds up to something over time. Does that make sense?
Rita, you asked about musical and literary things. You didn't quite get to the literary, and as much as having been to the FUV holiday cheer concert and having heard Steve Earle, who has managed to write and play music, I was wondering if you could list some of your literary aspirations, because when you talk about home, I find myself thinking of Frost and the idea of home is the place where when you go there, they have to take you in. And of course, Wolf saying, you can't go home again.
No,
and whether, you know, if you could list that, I'd be very intrigued. And
my literary aspirations or my influences?
Influences, if you'd like to go into your aspirations.
No, I don't. I was about to say I don't think I have any, except to be a good
Well, your musical
songwriter.
gifts more than make up for that.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, my literary aspirations are to be a good reader. You know, I in the beginning, my main literary influence was Eudora Welty. I think she's such a master of the short form, and she has such a point of view and such a sense of voice. And there were other reasons that I loved Eudora Welty too. One was that she was such a unique artist and an innovator as a woman. She traveled by herself. She never married. She was a photographer. She broke a lot of rules, but she broke them in a lovely way. And I really loved how multifaceted she was. I also loved that she was from this small southern town, and she always lived there, and she always looked out this one window, and never, you know, she didn't need to leave completely. I'm sure she had journeys, but I think that that's such a beautiful way to make art, that she, to me, that meant that she always found so much in humanity that she didn't have to make up false dramas, and she didn't have to have this crazy life, that she could come to that window every day and find something of depth to write about. And I thought that was really beautiful. I'm a huge Cormac McCarthy fan. I think that his work is so beautiful, if sometimes so violent that I have to turn the page. And Faulkner as well. I've spent the past year really fascinated by this poet Jack Gilbert, who actually just passed away, who was something of a character in his life. And I also really, really love Annie Dillard's nonfiction and her writing about life and nature and the nature of being a writer. The intensity there is really, really, really beautiful. So I would say those are my staples.
I heard when to college, Eudora Welty came, I'm a Vassar boy, Eudora Welty came there, and she read A Wide Net.
Oh, really?
And it was just lovely performance, you know, just there, just very calm, just the story spoke for itself.
She's
That was all she really needed to do. I think.
she seemed like she was a really amazing woman.
Thank you.
It's interesting you mentioned the photography because you're a photographer too, right? You
Strong
dabble.
words.
You-
I dabble.
You dabble. You have a camera.
I'm really, I think.
No, you're more than a dabbler.
I don't know that. I feel like we live in this time where we're all supposed to be like superhuman people. We're supposed to be like perfect parents and perfectly dressed and perfect overachievers and eat perfectly and be perfectly skinny and all that crap. And I feel like there's this impulse for artists to conquer other mediums. And I don't feel that I think creativity doesn't fit in a neat package, and everything that I do creatively points back to being a musician and being a songwriter. So I'm not out to conquer any other mediums. I think that's important. I like to just be myself. I'm not a superhuman. But I love to take photographs because I think that, first of all, using your eyes to see other people is such an important part of being a compassionate writer. And you need to look outside of yourself, and you need to make yourself look outside of yourself and find like the beauty and joy in these small things that you see when you take the time to really look at other people. And a camera is a really beautiful way to do that. And I also think that I'm so skeptical of kind of how nice I'm treated in situations like this, and the sort of being the center of attention. And I think it's my job as a writer to keep turning my attention back, and I think it's really important to not rest on your laurels and be the center of attention.
You seem to have this sort of core humility to everything that you approach.
I'm a Southern Protestant. I do not exist.
I did, right. But that is it is a core kind of thing. At the end of January 26th, I just heard about the show you're going to be doing at 92Y Tribeca. Tell us about that, because it's a pretty cool collaborative kind of thing.
Yeah, it's I do that. It stems from this. I do a radio show for Marfa, Texas Public Radio, which is I'm really behind on right now because I've been on tour. But I seek out artists, and I talk to one artist a month about what it's really, how they really make their work and how they really live their lives. And usually these people who are making really unique work are making really unique lives too. And people who are doing their own thing, I think, come across the same problems, but they are so off doing their own thing that they don't, it feels more personal. They forget that this is a common situation. So I ended up inviting this painter, Anna Schulit, to come on my show. And she was so beautiful. And we're the same age, and I don't know, I just felt like I just met a much better version of myself, much more evolved. And
is she from Texas?
No, she's here. She's from Germany. She lives here. And we had so much in common that we became friends, and I adore her work. And so we were trying to find a way to collaborate. And she does these beautiful live drawings with a projector and light. And she's done it with dance performances before. And we thought performing Traveling Alone with her creating a live drawing is what she calls it, would be a really beautiful thing. So I've never done anything like that, but I think it could be really, really beautiful, emotional. And she's a very beautiful artist. So.
And tell us her name again.
Anna Schulit.
And that's January 26th at 92Y Tribeca. That sounds very cool. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, thank you, guys, and thank you, Tift.
Thank you, Rita.
I mean, beyond
fun.
fun. Very
really
fun.
Nice to
Thank
see
you.
Thank you.